Hello everyone, Mr. Cross here. So we've reached our last lesson before the summer holiday, so I'm going to be going through today's lesson. Obviously some of you will be coming to school to do this, but for those that aren't, you can use this lesson. Also for those that went in but didn't quite finish it, you can use this as a guide. So I'll go through today's lesson, which is on the daily lives of Germans 1933 to 1939. I'll go through the work that you need to complete after going through this PowerPoint, and also explain a little bit more about the summer work that we're going to encourage you to do, which will be really useful. So the first thing to say about this is we're looking at 1933 to 1939. That's really important because this is before the Second World War. We're not talking about how lives changed during 1939 to 1945. That comes later, that's a later unit. This one's focused on before the Second World War. Okay, and we'll be looking at 4 different groups. We'll be looking at children, those groups that were persecuted like the Jews, we'll be looking at workers and women. Okay, some of them we won't cover in too much detail because we won't be able to do that all in one lesson. Others we'll look at a bit more, and we'll be looking at exam questions as well. So to start off with, we've got a source here. You might recognise the source. It's one that we've probably used with you, possibly in year 9. All I want you to think about, so you might want to pause it after I finish speaking, you might want to just have a little think about what this tells us, this poster tells us about Nazi views on the family. So you might just have a look at the different elements here. So you might think about the baby, the number of children. You might have a look about the woman, what's she wearing, how does she look, what do we think the man's role is, judging by this picture. We've got an eagle in the background there, what do we think that represents? Volksgemeinschaft there, can you remember what that means? So just have a little think about those things, and then I'll go through some ideas on the next slide. So here are some of the ideas. So we'll start off over here. So we've got a woman wearing traditional dress. There's no makeup. She's a mother, and that is her primary role. So that's what they were encouraging women to do. We've got the children here that are seen as the ideal Aryans. They've got blonde hair. Can't quite see their eye colour, but we can probably guess that it's going to be blue if we look a bit closer. And they're used as role models. Okay, so remember, an Aryan didn't have to be blonde hair and blue eyes, but quite often in the posters that was seen as the ideal. There's 3 children, so women were encouraged to have lots of children. You might think about what laws and what financial encouragement they gave to families to do that, which we'll actually look at later. The role of the man is to work and look after the family. You can see he's got his arms round the family. You've got the eagle, and that's a representation of Germany, and maybe more specifically the NSDAP, which is just the German Workers' Party, which is the Nazi party. And then you've got Volksgemeinschaft written here, which means people's community. So the idea that the community, that Germany, the people, are more important than an individual, that they shouldn't be serving their own selfish needs, that they should be trying to support the Nazi party and Germany in everything that they do. Okay, so just a really quick activity here whereby we've got 3 paragraphs all about children and how they were treated in Nazi Germany. And what I would like you to do is go through it and just see if you can correct and amend the errors. So you might just annotate them. So for example, when Hitler became Chancellor in 1935, he did become Chancellor, but it wasn't in 1935. So you might just note down that actually that's a mistake, and then you might just write above it, I'm not going to try and write it myself, but it was 1933 that he became Chancellor. So just go through it, have a go at that, and there's a bit of a challenge activity there. You can maybe write down 5 further facts about how the Nazis controlled education and youth. Okay, I'll be going through the knowledge organiser that supports this in a minute. So pause it if you want, have a go at this activity, and then move on. Okay, so here are the answers. So it wasn't 1935, it was 1933. He was not really interested in education children. He was very interested. He saw them as, the future, and they were very important to him. However, he soon realised that by indoctrinating the minds of young people, he could improve the chance of maintaining control in the future. He did this in two ways: controlling the education system and by controlling sweet shops. Sweet shops is obviously wrong, and instead of that, you might have hopefully thought about controlling the teachers themselves, so the education system, but also making sure that the teachers adhered to Nazi policy. Education was controlled by changing the curriculum, that's correct. Sport was given, it says, a low priority and less time, where it was a high priority and more time, and you might want to think about why that was. Think about maybe what they wanted boys to grow up and be and what girls they wanted to do. Subjects such as maths and race studies were given high priority, that's true. Students would learn to work out the cost of keeping a mentally ill patient alive, or how Jews were the most intelligent race. Well, they wouldn't have said that they were the most intelligent race, obviously. Hitler even set up Adolf Hitler schools for those showing promise as Nazi leaders. They weren't very successful really, because they picked them along race lines, so they would just pick, strong Aryan children, and that's obviously not the best way of picking future leaders. And the Nazis weren't that bothered what children did at youth clubs. They were, and obviously they set up the Hitler Youth and indoctrinated them in many ways. These were very popular. Well, they were quite popular, but maybe one of the things that some children didn't like was going on long marches and doing the community work. They maybe, wanted to spend their time doing other things. Okay. So that's young people covered for this unit. So we're going to briefly have a look as well at the treatment of Jews next, I think. So we've got a knowledge organiser here. So on the kind of left hand side, well, it's kind of this area here. Oops, sorry, not that bit there. Let's do this again. So these ones here are to do with youth and education, and then on the other side here we've got how they treated minorities, in particular Jewish people. So when you do the quiz, some of the quiz questions will come from this knowledge organiser, so make sure you know these really, really well. Okay, so I've got another activity to do with the persecution of the Jews, again using a source. Again, it's something that you will recognise, so maybe use your knowledge organiser to help you here and think about how the Jewish person is being portrayed. So we've got an example here. You've got the hammer and sickle was the emblem of the communists, and they're kind of mixing that image with this image of a Jewish person to put those two things together, that way making it a lot more simple for the German public to take in that basically they were being told to hate communists and Jews, and that they were the same person, but obviously that's not true, but it was a good propaganda technique for them. So have a little pause of it and think about, is there anything else on this image that maybe shows how they wanted people to think about the Jewish people? Okay, so some of the things that you might have thought about, okay, is the character here, this Jewish person, is shown to be quite ugly. We can see that he's holding a whip, so it's saying that Jewish people were quite cruel. We've got here quite an important one, is he's got money, gold coins in his hand. Even you could see that he's kind of looking at that gold coin, showing that the main motivation of Jewish people is money and greed. So they're trying to get across these very negative traits of people to the German public, so as to encourage people to hate Jewish people and in turn to persecute Jews, or at the very least let persecution happen, which obviously happens through Gleichschaltung, which is some of the own knowledge that you can bring in, or you could argue that also it kind of leads into the Night of Broken Glass as well, that this kind of got people ready for that frame of mind where they were willing to go around and break Jewish shops' windows and attack rabbis and damage synagogues. So there's a question here, this is the type of question you might get. So we had a look at this when we did a dictatorship lesson. So what can the source tell us about Nazi views on Jewish people? So I would underline Nazi views of Jewish people, remember, because that's got to be the focus of the question. Don't just talk about everything in the source. What does it tell you about Nazi views of Jewish people? The best way to get high marks on this question is to focus in on the purpose. Okay, so really think about what are they trying to encourage German people to think and do. So they're using propaganda to encourage German people to hate Jewish people, to persecute them, to get them ready for Gleichschaltung, the anti-Semitism, getting Jewish people out of jobs, Jewish boycotts of shops, and getting them ready for the Night of Broken Glass, Kristallnacht. So these are the types of things that you would be able to write using this source, okay? So if you want, you can have a go at doing this at home. We won't cover this in the lesson, I don't think we'll have time. But if you want to have a go, it's not compulsory, this one, but if you do, just send it to me, your answer, and I'm quite happy to give you a mark and some feedback on that if you want that. Okay, so we've looked at young people and Jewish people. Next, we're going to have a look at workers and women together. Okay, so we've got another knowledge organiser here. So we've got workers just there, workers just there, and workers just there. The rest of them are to do with family and more specifically women, just around here. So again, when you do the quiz, the questions will directly be taken from here. So it's really important you learn the information on here so that you can effectively tackle that quiz. Okay, so this is the question that we're going to have a look at. So as well as doing the Show My Homework quiz again, you're going to have a go at doing the this workers and women question. So we've got a question here. The Nazis' policies on workers and women made the lives of these groups worse. How far do you agree with this view of Germany between 1933 and 1939? Okay, so same as normal. We'd start off by underlining the key questions. So it's policies on workers and women. And it's asking you whether they made lives worse of these. So you want to talk about both groups if you get a question like this. It doesn't need to be equally. You might go into the exam and think, oh god, it's about workers. I didn't really revise that as much. Hopefully you will, but you know, realistically there will be areas of weakness going into an exam possibly. So even if you just did one paragraph about workers, that's fine. If the rest of it's about women, you can still reach the top band by doing that. But please remember, it's 33 to 39. If you start talking about stuff that happens during the Second World War, you won't get any marks for it. So it might be worth just underlining that and just reminding yourself. So the question is saying that they made things worse. So you might have paragraphs that agree that it was worse and disagree. Okay. So what I suggest you do is do a quick table and come up with 4 points. You can have 1 on agree, 3 on disagree, 2 on each side, or 3 disagree, 1 agree, and just put a few little facts maybe next to it. So when you're doing it, you might think, for example, about women, and you can think about how actually lives did get worse for some women. So which might agree. You might say that those women that during Weimar Germany, so those women before the Nazis took over, who were quite liberal, that maybe they were going off to university or they were doctors and had careers, wore makeup, smoked, you know, those types of things, those liberal women, then having to stop all of that and being told basically they couldn't do those things, couldn't go to university, had to leave their professions that they'd worked so hard, and then they're being asked to look after the family. That, you know, that is going to make life worse for those women. However, there were some women that maybe wanted that, you know, that was what they wanted. They wanted their role to be stay-at-home wives, and maybe they didn't have quite the money or the possibilities to do that, but because they provided for them loans, which encouraged them to quit their jobs, get married, they'd then be able to have this loan, and then for every child that they had, a quarter of that loan was wiped out. That to some women would have been a good thing, or they would have seen it as a good thing. So you can see how, you know, for women you can find evidence that agrees and disagrees. Okay, so there's some examples. Try and think of your own if you can. Okay, so here's an example. Okay, so we've got a model example here, and it's just got a bit of an outline in this top left of what you've got to do. So in a real exam, you'd have 25 minutes to plan and write the answer. So by plan, I mean doing a little tea table like you hopefully have just done. And you're just going to submit one paragraph. If you want to do more, please do so, and I'll give you a mark. I'll mark it. That's great if you do, but at the very least I want to see one good peel paragraph. We've done lots of these recently, so we should be getting really good based on that feedback that I have given people. So please maybe remind yourself of that feedback before you have a go at this. And then you're going to submit it in the same way by emailing it to me or submitting it on Show My Homework, and I can give you feedback there. So we've got an example here, and have a little think about where is the point, where's the evidence, where's the explanation. Okay, if you want to pause it and then just have a little read of it. This is just to really show you how clear you can make that point, evidence and explanation, just so the examiner doesn't have to work hard at all. They just see it and then they can give you your mark straight away. You don't want the examiner's working for it really. So then we have a look there. So we've got the red bit is the point, the purple bit there in the middle is the evidence, and then you've got the explanation at the end that links the whole paragraph together, which is really, really important. Okay, so you're going to have a go at doing that yourself and submitting it online. You've got the Show My Homework quiz to do. So we've covered all of these groups today: workers, women, young people and Jews, and looked at how their lives changed. So we've done quite a lot there. Also, just want to very quickly before I go today, just go through the summer work that we want you to do. So there is a £40 Amazon voucher up for grabs. We're doing a raffle. The way that you earn raffle tickets is by completing a revision activity from the America activities that are on Show My Homework. We'll also give you that pack if you come into school, so we'll give you a physical copy of these things as well. There's also some exam questions that you can get raffle tickets for. So for each question or each activity you do and submit before the first week back, or on the first week back after the summer holiday, you'll get a raffle ticket. The only exception to that is the 1 mark questions. So there is some 1 mark questions, but I think there's about 8 of them. So if you do all 8 of them, I'll give you 1 raffle ticket for all 8, because they really are just 1-word answers. So I think, you know, giving 1 raffle ticket for each 1 mark question, I think would be a bit excessive. Okay, so it's just a bit of encouragement for you to try and do as much as you can. I'll be logging in once a week. I'm not sure exactly when that'll be, but I'll try and log in once a week over the summer holiday. And if you could, anything you do over the summer, I'd suggest just putting a bit of time aside each week just to do a little bit of work and sending that in to me, and then I can regularly give you some feedback. I'll take those in, I'll write up your raffle tickets, and then when we get back I'll do a live draw, whether that's in front of you so you can see that it's being done fairly, or we can do it on a YouTube channel or something like that, but we'll figure that out when we get back. Okay, well, thanks for all your hard work in this difficult time. Okay, I know we've given you a bit of work to do, and and sometimes I think like you've done work and I've given you feedback, and I think you can just do it a bit better. It's not to be horrible, it's just that I want the best for you. So keep trying your hardest. I do appreciate that you've done really, really well. Enjoy your summer. Do have a break, but I would suggest trying to just regularly do little bits of work. Okay, so take care, and I'll see you back in September.